I told you guys we weren't going anywhere. The show was not going to go anywhere. Welcome back to the Southside Beat. And we have a new third co-host, Matt Williamson, here to my left. What's up, Matt? What's going on, man?
How's it going, fellas? I'm psyched. This should be a good time, man.
Heck yeah. So obviously Greg Macafee is still here too. Definitely excited for this new format of the Southside Beat. Just want to kind of go over this real quick before we really start talking football. This is the new format of the show. It's going to be once a week. It's going to be here put out close to the upcoming Steelers game, at least during the season. We'll figure out what we're going to do during the offseason. But for now, this is going to be just a really good football podcast. We're going to look at what the Steelers did in the previous game. We're going to look at what they have to do in order to win in the upcoming game, or if they even have a chance to win in the upcoming game. Just really excited about this format of the podcast, getting Greg's take. You know, Greg and I are boots on the ground, being there. Matt obviously knows the game at such a high level, can bring such an awesome perspective so that we can get really the full perspective of what's going on with this team heading into the week. So I'm excited. Are you guys excited about this? I am.
Oh yeah, you know it. Good to be back.
All righty. So Matt, I want to get your perspective really quick.
Yeah.
Atlanta Steelers win 18-10, 6 field goals, 6 of 10 drives, end with points. That's usually pretty good. You want to see touchdowns though. What did you like? What didn't you like from what the Steelers did in Atlanta?
The obvious low-hanging fruit was TJ Watt was as good a defensive performance as I've really seen in the last 20 years from any team. And I think that overshadows a little bit just how dominant Cam Hayward was and the impact Minkah, Porter, Highsmith, all the defensive stars were stars in this game. And I thought that was the foundation of this team. And if that keeps up, they're going to be in a lot of football games and hard to beat. And so the defense as a whole was really, really impressive. The offense, you mentioned it. I mean, they at least the bar's low around here. I mean, we don't expect this to turn into, the greatest show on turf overnight, I hope. But I mean, they got first downs. They moved the football. They ended drives with kicks, most of them resulting in points. I'll take it. I think we can't overlook that a bunch of young first-time starting offensive linemen, which we'll talk about Broderick Jones here, I'm sure, at some point. And I think that's one reason he's not going to probably start. With a new quarterback, with a new offensive system, there's a lot of change going on here on offense. And that's not going to, be bear fruit right away.
Greg, obviously the defense, this is how this team is going to win games. I know you weren't in Atlanta with us, but still getting a chance to watch it, to comb back through it. Was there anything else that really leapt out to you? Because this is also not only a team that seemed to dominate the line of scrimmage, but also were able to take the ball away.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of talked about it earlier this week, you and I, Chris, but I think Deshaun Elliott getting into this defense, I think is something that's overlooked a little bit. I mean, I think it's something that's been overlooked throughout all of training camp. He's been mentioned at certain times, but it's not his direct impact. Obviously, he had the interception in the game and everything, and his versatility is really good for this defense, being able to slide down into the slot and things of that nature. But him being in this defense allows Minkah to get back to doing what Minkah does best, and that's play free safety, roam the secondary, get up to the line of scrimmage when he needs to. I mean, I remember going back through the film, and you just kind of see him come out of nowhere and come up to the line of scrimmage, stop runs at the point of attack and everything like that. And just him being able to do that makes this defense so much better, and it allows it to reach its highest potential. But the new additions that you see, I mean, Deshaun Elliott, Dante Jackson, guys like that, I mean, they came up big. The secondary was strong. They were tight on their coverages. I remember going through the film and just seeing, Kirk Cousins having to go through, I think, 3 or 4 reads before he actually threw the ball. I think Deshaun Elliott's interception, he went through 4 reads before, he decided to throw the ball to where it was a dominant performance all over for the defense.
Let me chime in super quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, most people know this, but I host a show called The Drive for Steelers.com with Dale Lawley. And we had Elliott on the show yesterday. He called in and we did a segment with him. And it was a really good conversation, really well-spoken, great head for things. And kind of like Greg mentioned, when I watched the All-22, it was obvious that his film study translated to the field. Like, he had a really good understanding of what the opponent was trying to do. And he was also talking about the massive influence Minka's had on him since he's been here, so it's good stuff.
No, I thought the Deshaun Elliott signing was probably one of the more underrated signings of the entire offseason. Like, obviously the Patrick Queen signing gets a lot of attention, but I thought Deshaun Elliott, whenever, just like on the surface, when I looked at him, I'm like, okay, this is a guy who, he may not like blow you away, be like an all pro level type guy, but it doesn't seem like there's a real hole in his game, that he does everything really, really well. Not anything overly great, but he's just really good at just about everything. And that's like the perfect kind of guy to play next to Minkah, because that really does free up Minkah to do all the Minkah things. And I understand Minkah wasn't like the biggest factor in this game, but shoot, man, if Deshaun Elliott can show the kind of stuff that he did this past Sunday, I mean, we talked at length about Jesse Bates and Justin Simmons being this awesome safety tandem. I would actually start, if Deshaun Elliott plays like at a high level, why wouldn't Deshaun Elliott and Minkah Fitzpatrick be not be considered one of the better safety pairs in the league?
No, I think that's fair. And sorry, I remember last year, it was probably like week 12 or so for DK's site. I wrote an article about Minkah, and I compared him to a fireman, because I felt like his whole job week to week was put out this fire, go put out that fire, instead of being able to go do things. He was like putting fingers in the dike to stop the flood, the Three Stooges in the boat, and they're just flooding, and he has to make up for every little problem. Now he can just do his stuff and be Minkah.
Yeah.
No, I would agree with that. I would agree with that completely. And I do think that this defense, shoot, man, we hardly talked about the linebackers after the game.
Yeah.
There wasn't much discussion about Patrick Queen or Landon Roberts. Peyton Wilson had a really good tackle that saved a touchdown on the first drive. But outside of that, the linebackers were kind of a non-factor. And that was really because of the defensive line playing so well, and also the secondary being able to take the ball away.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of the DBs said it after the game. I mean, it was like, being in a candy store, just kind of waiting for the candy to come down when the defensive line is putting so much pressure on the quarterback. But I mean, the linebackers in general, I mean, you just have so much versatility there and everything like that. And when you can switch out Peyton Wilson and Landon Roberts to play in certain situations, it just makes them so much stronger. So I mean, at all three levels, really, they had a really good first game of the season, that's for sure.
All right, I want to tie a bow on the Atlanta thing with one question here, and I want to ask you, Matt, because I want to get your perspective, because Mike Tomlin brought it up, and it makes a lot of sense, because whenever I looked at the numbers, Kirk Cousins was really, really good against the blitz last year, and has been throughout his career. And so Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin and the coaching staff decided, we're not going to blitz this guy. We're going to try to get to him with 4 guys. Is that something the Steelers can have success with week in and week out, or are there quarterbacks that are just going to, that you kind of need to bring the heat? Like, for example, and maybe we can transition this into the Denver conversation after the break, but maybe like a rookie quarterback, those are the guys you want to bring the 5-man, 6-man rushes? Or is this something that, because from my perspective, I think if you can only rush 4 guys and you're dropping 7 most of the time, that gives the secondary an opportunity to feast? Or is this just something that's going to be a week in, week out? You have to be able to adjust based on your opponent.
It's a great conversation and not an easy one to answer, but I think it's worth noting that Peyton Wilson at college was an excellent blitzer. Queen has proven to be a very productive blitzer, as has Roberts. So those clubs are still in the bag. I don't see a Hilton-like slot guy anymore, to bring off the edge that they had success with back in the day. But you kind of said it. I mean, it's a defensive coordinator's dream. If you can get that kind of pressure with 4, I don't see a whole lot of wrinkles from that point. Unless needed, break glass when needed type of thing.
Right.
And mix them in situationally,
Right, I understand that. All right, so when we come back here after the break, we're going to dive straight into the Denver Broncos matchup. On paper, kind of looks like it should be a pretty favorable matchup for the Steelers, but I don't think, shoot, it's the NFL. There's no automatic W in this league. So when we come back, we will dive right into that. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Southside Beat here on the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcasting Network. Week 2, the Steelers have an opportunity to go 2-0 on the road, much less. Obviously, Steelers do a really, really good job typically against rookie quarterbacks. Bo Nix did look great in his NFL debut, 138 yards. His pass per attempt, I don't remember what the exact number is, but I think it was less than 4 through 2 picks. Not a day to remember. Greg, what are you looking for in this game for the Steelers? Is it just going to be utter dominance, or is there something you're really looking for on the offensive side?
I think they're going to dominate the ball. I mean, it's when you have a rookie quarterback and you can take advantage of it. I mean, I think that's what all head coaches in the NFL like to see is, going up against rookie quarterbacks, especially a guy like Bo Nix, who didn't really have the greatest first game, but, they took advantage of his athleticism, used him on the ground and things of that nature. And, that's kind of what Terrell Austin said earlier this week was that, he thought they used him well. Throughout their first game, using his athleticism, kind of like he displayed in college and things of that nature. But, for me, it's the offense getting in the end zone. It's continuing to use the running game and be physical in the running game. I think that's the identity they need to establish this season for sure.
All right, Matt. So I gotta ask you, because Arthur Smith seemed really, really almost giddy to talk about the blunt force trauma that the offensive line put on Atlanta in the second half. Can this team, at least this week, be able to kind of have a similar game plan in which they're going to take their shots? I mean, Justin Fields at quarterback, you're going to take advantage of his arm, but is this going to be another game in which the Steelers can assert their dominance up front, run the football, and kind of, instead of going for the kill shot in round 1 as Najee Harris, it's a 15-round fight, they're just going to do body blow after body blow after body blow and kind of pound them into submission? Is that this type of game, or are they going to have to take more shots down the field?
No, I think it's absolutely this type of game is more than anything, and this is a huge, huge Bill Belichick thing, is from what I've been told, before the Patriots in the Belichick era would game plan or start digging into the opponent, Bill would sit down with his staff and say, this is how we don't lose the game, not how we go about winning it. But if these couple things could lose us this particular football game, whatever it is, we can't let Watt beat us. We can't let Pickens, whatever it is. But I think that's very much the approach to this particular game, in that we can't let Fields take a bunch of sacks like he did in Chicago. We can't have him with overthrows or tips or things of that nature. We can't have a kick blocked. I mean, there's a couple things within your control, penalties, that type of thing. And that doesn't guarantee victory, but Tomlin's so good at that, of knowing his team and understanding how to win in this league. And actually Sean Payton is as well. They've won a lot of games between them, and there's an art to that. So I think that's a big key. And frankly, to me, that means a lot of touches for Najee, who might not be the most dynamic back, but he's very reliable. He rarely fumbles. He's always available. He can handle a lot of touches. Getting Warren more involved, maybe a little more over the middle passing. Well, any over the middle passing is more. A little bit of Freiermuth wouldn't be a bad idea, as opposed to avoiding the Falcon safeties, which I think was a big thing along these lines of, we have to avoid the Falcon safeties because that's one way we can lose this game. So I think that's the approach. And hey, if we have to punt here and there, so be it. We don't have to have explosives left and right, because George Pickens has the hardest matchup he's going to have all year.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you said that, because when we thought about, like, okay, Arthur Smith, like, he admitted he's not going to let Jesse Bates wreck the game like that. He didn't let that happen against Atlanta. The biggest game wrecker on the defensive side of the ball for Denver is Pat Surtain. Like, he's just that good. He is an amazing cornerback, and he's going to be matched up with George Pickens all game. So that doesn't mean don't throw the ball to George Pickens, but that also means, okay, you might have an opportunity to highlight Pat Freiermuth over the middle. You might have an opportunity to try to scheme up some stuff to get Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin, or maybe if Roman Wilson plays, to get those guys a little bit more involved. Or maybe this is just another Seattle game in which both Najee Harris and Jalen Warren just eat some more, and they just go off for 200 yards on the ground. Especially because,
real quick note, I apologize for interrupting. I'll try to do it less shows, but everyone knows about Arthur Smith and tight ends. But if you look at his history throwing to running backs that aren't named Derrick Henry, who doesn't catch the ball, it's a big deal. I think Harris and Warren will catch a lot of safe passes in this game too. Their linebackers aren't very good.
I'm also glad you brought that up, because like Justin Fields even admitted like he's got to work on his accuracy on those checkdowns. Like that can't be something that he misses. Like NFL quarterback, you can't miss your checkdowns, because there was a play to Najee in the early in the I think it was the first quarter. He kind of just missed him. Now Najee got a hand on it, but still it was thrown behind him. And if he leads him in that to actually go downfield, like Najee's got like two guys in front of him, and that's it in open space. That's exactly what you want to do. And so, Greg, I'm what am I missing here when it comes to what Justin Fields has to do in order to, because the quarterback is going to get a lot of the attention here. What does Justin Fields have to do in order to make sure that these guys actually get the ball in the end zone? Because they have to do that.
I mean, I think it starts with not turning the ball over. I mean, it's just being careful with the ball, but also finding the middle of the field, seeing those short intermediate passes to kind of move the ball down the field along with the running game and everything like that. Just kind of, mixing in passes, not necessarily having to attack defenses all the way down the field, but just kind of taking what the defense is giving him, using his legs and things of that nature. Just kind of doing everything he's good at. But it starts with, the anticipation, hitting those throws across the middle, and just those short throws that he kind of, did at times against Atlanta. It's moving the sticks and kind of, eating up space across the middle for sure.
All right. So Matt, I have a question for you. And like, how does an offensive coordinator go about game planning to try to maximize a receiver against an elite cornerback like Surtain? Like, is it just let Pickens do his thing and just hope he wins, or do they actually? What are ways you can attack him so that Pickens can be productive? They don't completely neutralize him.
I wonder if that's one of those things of, if we pick on Surtain, that's a good way we could lose. Like you just, I'm not saying you never throw him the ball, but I'm wondering, let's not go down that road if we don't have to. The other corners, the safeties, the linebackers, I mean, they all have targets on their chest. Why are we going after the best corner in the league? If he ends up with a pick six or a tip ball or something, and all of a sudden this is a 10-9 game with 5 minutes to play, and you're wondering how they're still hanging around, then you're going to kick yourself. But unlike the former coordinator, you're seeing Pickens in the slot, pre-snap motion, moving them around. I mean, they're going to – and it was obvious to me watching the preseason, even though Pickens sometimes was only out there for 6 snaps, 10 snaps, when he was out there in the preseason, they schemed him the football. It went out of their way to do it without question.
Mm-hmm. That is one thing that I really want to highlight here, because some people are kind of being hard on Arthur Smith on the offense for not using the middle of the field against Atlanta, for only scoring, via field goal, not getting in the end zone. And some people there are already some naysayers out there saying they should have gotten Clint Kubiak or Zach Robinson, which, by the way, Zach Robinson's didn't look all that great against the Steelers. Now, granted, Steelers defense is really good,
right?
But still, like Zach Robinson,
that looked like a new coaching staff to me,
right? Yeah. And Zach Robinson was one of those guys that was being considered, like for fans being like, oh, that's the young coordinator that everybody wants. Well, listen, Bill Belichick gets a lot of credit constantly over the course of his coaching career for being a genius at scheming either guys into a game, or for the opposition, scheming guys out of a game. Like, you're going to take this one player and make him a non-factor no matter how good he is. Bill Belichick made a living doing that. And so when Arthur Smith puts together a game plan in which he points at one guy on the opposite side of the ball and says, I'm not going to let that guy ruin the game, and then it works, regardless of how it happened, it worked. And they even had some things which they did attack him, but knew that they could attack him in a certain way, specifically that play to George Pickens near the end of the first half, in which they could attack him knowing that he wasn't going to be able to wreck the game that way. I think that's brilliant stuff, and that's why Arthur Smith should be getting more credit, and why we should be recognizing the fact, like, okay, is he the best offensive coordinator in the league? I'm not ready to go there yet, but is he a real OC? Yeah, they got a real OC now.
The biggest upgrade on the whole team.
Yeah.
So okay, so that's I'm not gonna say that's like a hot take or anything like that, but you do think like when you're talking
more so the quarterback, and
okay, yeah, because like
more so the linebacker.
Okay, all right. So the biggest upgrade the Steelers made this offseason was hiring Arthur Smith as OC.
I think they went from 32 to 8.
That's okay. I'm just
I'll say whatever. I mean,
no, that's a really good thing because like we keep talking about the fact that okay, the Steelers defense is going to be what wins them football games. But listen, we don't even almost consider the fact that okay, what if this offense does actually become top 12 in the NFL?
I'll take 20.
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, what if they're in the top half of the league? Like, what's the ceiling at that point?
Then they're a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, I think you just need an offense that complements this defense. I mean, I think they displayed it perfectly in the first game. I mean, when you have an offense that can hold the ball for what was the time of possession, like somewhere between 35 and 40
I think it was like almost
20 something
minutes.
Yeah, I mean, when you're able to do that, when you're able to give your defense time to rest and things of that nature, and then they go back out on the field and they get the pressure that they do and force the turnovers and give the ball right back off of the offense. I mean, that's the balance that you want. That's the defense complementing the offense. So I think we've talked about it a bunch of times. I think the most important thing is just taking care of the ball, moving the ball down the field, eating the clock, and not committing turnovers.
I'm excited to see what Arthur has cooked. What he's cooked up for this game against Denver because it is a pretty good defense. I don't think it's quite as good as Atlanta's. I think Atlanta has more star power. Surtain's great, but defensive line, linebackers, I like their pass rush a little bit. They're going to be able to put some pressure on Fields. This offensive line, especially if Troy Fautanu does start, which it's looking like he's going to. Yeah. It's looking like he's going to. They're going to have a bit of a test there with Denver's pass rush. So, is it going to be more of the same? Like, is this going to have to be like, okay, need to utilize a good amount of play action, get Justin, move the pocket around so that Fields can be on the move. He can make some throws that way in rhythm. Is that kind of what it's going to have to be? Because I feel like the more and more you can get Justin feeling good about himself, the higher his ceiling is going to go.
I think middle of the field passing is going to spike dramatically because I agree with you that this is somewhat of an underrated defense. Surtain's the straw that he's the best player on the team by far. But the defensive front, Zach Allen, Franklin Myers, Baron Browning, Benito, Cooper, they're a much better group than people think. So they may pressure Fields reasonably well. And I think their run defense, though, is terrible. And I think their off-the-ball linebackers and safeties are terrible, which makes me think more middle-of-the-field passing, more Freiermuth, maybe running it at the same extreme percentage. I just don't think Denver's offense is going to run away from you in this game.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
I would agree. I would agree with that. I think the Steelers defense is going to have plenty of stuff cooked up to put a lot of pressure on Bo Nix. Again, didn't look great. I mean, Seattle's, got a good defense and everything like that, but I shoot, man, like Bo Nix, 138 yards, 2 picks against Seattle's defense. Seeing what the Steelers are capable of on defense, this should be a game in which they force multiple turnovers, get to him quite a bit. And I think that's all really this defense has to do. What do you say, Greg?
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I think it's just containing them, committing turnovers, just a replica of what they were able to do last week. I mean, I think what they put together was perfect. Obviously, you want to probably limit them a little more, but what they were able to put together with the pressure they got to the quarterback, they limited the rushing, they created turnovers, and that's the recipe to success right there.
Okay, one last question for the two of you, and then we're gonna make our picks here at the end. The tackle situation, I do think we kind of need to touch on that. We've touched on Fields, we've touched on a lot of other stuff in this. The tackle situation, Mike Tomlin's being tight-lipped about it. Dan Moore was asked about it. He said that's a question for Mike Tomlin. I do think that this is going to be Dan Moore on the left, Troy Fautanu on the right. I don't necessarily think that that's just because Broderick Jones is playing bad. I do think he's dealing with an elbow thing. I know they're not putting him on the injury report, but I do think that he's dealing with an elbow. He's wearing that gigantic brace on his elbow. I think he's also got something going on with his thumb. Greg, I'll kick it to you first about Dan Moore, and then Matt, I want to get your perspective on Troy Fautanu. But Greg, what does Dan Moore have to do? Because he played really well in Atlanta. What does Dan Moore have to do in order to kind of keep Broderick Jones on the bench, at least for right now?
I think just what he did in Atlanta. I mean, it's providing consistent protection, not giving up pressures, not giving up sacks, things of that nature. I mean, earlier this week when he came up on the injury report with an ankle, it was like, all right, this, I said in the feed, I put it in the feed, the best ability is availability. You want to stay on the field. He came back, he bounced right back the next day after sitting out one practice this week. I think he said today that he'll be fine, he'll be good to go. And it's staying on the field. It's not giving up sacks, it's not giving up pressures. That's how you keep Broderick Jones. And I mean, if Broderick Jones is dealing with something, I know earlier, I think it was in camp or before the first game, he said, I'm as healthy as I'm going to get. If he's dealing with
that's not a good thing.
Yeah, if he's healthy, if he's not healthy and he's dealing with something, and Troy Fautanu is good to go and he's ready to go and he's looked good in practice, you might as well give him a game, give him time to recoup as much as he can. So yeah, it's simple. It's not giving up sacks, not giving up pressures, and it's clearing the way for Najee and Jalen.
All right, Matt. Troy Fautanu, is he ready to go? Is he ready to make an NFL debut and actually be an effective right tackle?
I lean towards yes. I mean, I have not been at practice every day, but I was really impressed with him at camp. I loved him coming out of school. I thought that he had very little chance to get to the Steelers pick in the middle of the first round, and they were fortunate he did. But don't forget, he's a left tackle turned right, and he has very little experience, and there'll be growing pains. But I'm with you, Chris. I think that's the line you're going to see. I think you're going to see him at right tackle. You're going to see more at left, especially after the way he played in Atlanta, a very solid outing. And don't forget, I mean, Arthur Smith helps his linemen quite a bit. That Falcons line looked a lot better last year than it did in week one. I'm not sure it's a coincidence, just saying. But I think this is another factor is, do you really want a first-year rookie starting right tackle, a second all-time start center and left guard, a guy with very few starts moving from right tackle to left with a new quarterback and a new offensive scheme? Like, it's a lot of change.
Yeah.
I mean, if Siamalu was at left guard, that would be a nice stabilizing force. You know what I mean? Put him between the two Jones and Frazier, and he's smart. He's a veteran. Like, let's just put some people out there. We know what they're going to do, good or bad, Yeah.
That's a really, really good point because, if it is Broderick Jones on the left side and Troy Fautanu on the right, that's a lot of youth up front against a pretty good pass rush with Denver.
Yeah.
So
on the road, loud environment. I mean,
and plus Broderick Jones is known more for being a polished run blocker than in his pass pro needs some work.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, picks. Greg, what do you have for this game?
Steelers 27. I think the defense shows up again. I think Denver gets a score just kind of on a lucky drive, something like that. Missed coverage maybe, I don't know. 27, but the defense shows up again. Offense gets in the end zone twice. I'm thinking a pass touchdown for Justin Fields, rushing touchdown for Najee, and then Boswell comes in again for 2 field goals, I think.
All right, Matt, what do you got?
I have 16-10, and that sounds like a closer game than you might think. But I think they control the game. I think they play small ball. I think they run to the point where it might be frustrating. But the biggest opponent to me in this game is the altitude. And the second the schedule came out, I was hoping, I hope they don't have to go to Denver the first month of the year. Denver, since they've been a franchise, is 83, 33, and 2 at home in September. Because it's so hard to play there, because it's like playing in Miami and when it's 100 degrees out. I mean, you just wear out at the end of games because of lack of oxygen. So I think the Steelers rotate a lot of people in. That's an Arthur Smith thing to begin with. And they have a really deep defensive front right now. You're going to see more Adams. You're going to see more Herbig. And just play small ball and be the more physical team and try to wear the opponent out and control the game. And I don't think it'll be as close as my score predicts. I just don't know that No offense, Greg. 27 seems pretty ambitious right now. Yeah.
Well, I'm really ambitious because I have 23-10.
Okay.
Now that 23 could come in a number of ways. I do have the traditional like 2 touchdowns, 3 field goals. And maybe those 3 field goals, because it's the altitude, maybe Boswell makes a 60-yarder. I mean, he can. I mean, shoot, man, he can make a 60-yarder whenever they're not a mile high above sea level. Shoot, man, maybe he makes a 65-yarder. I don't know, but maybe one. And actually, I'm gonna go ahead and even make a prediction on top of that. I'm going to say one of those touchdowns is like a kill shot type, whether it's a bomb to George Pickens, whether it's a Jaylen Warren breakaway 60-yarder like he had against Cleveland last year, whatever it is, that is some sort of big chunk play where it's a quick score and they get something. And then the rest of the game is just a lot of ground and pound. It's a lot of kind of what we saw in Atlanta. And I think, 15 or what would it be? 16 points that way is probably more accurate for what this type of a game. I don't think that this is going to be a necessarily a high scoring game. I don't remember what the over under is for the game, but betting the under is a good bet. I don't know if my 33 points is under that or not. I don't know what the over under is. I didn't actually even look at it yet. So either way,
the lowest of the week. I know that.
Yeah, that's not surprising.
Yeah.
But I do think I think this offense takes a step forward. That's probably my biggest part of the prediction. So, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this the first first episode of this format of the show. This is what we're going to be doing from now on. It's going to be once a week. It's going to be here, like I said, close to kind of carry you into the weekend for the upcoming Steelers game. We'll kind of tie a bow on the game that happened before, and then we'll really kind of dive into the game just as we did the upcoming game as we did today. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will catch you guys next week.